For 12 years, my family ignored me. Then Mom demanded I donate both my kidneys to my brother. When I refused, she accused me of trying to end his life. For 12 years, my own family acted like I didn't exist. They ignored my birthdays, my struggles, even my own tragic miscarriage. But then, my brother needed kidneys, and suddenly, I wasn't just family, I was a walking organ bank. And my own mother demanded I give him both of mine. My mother thought I was selfish for not handing over my organs to Ethan, her golden boy. She stood in my living room, crying what I knew were utterly phony tears, claiming I was killing him by retaining undeserved organs. You have 2 healthy kidneys. Ethan has none, she wailed. You could save him without harshness right now. But the story of Ethan's kidneys started long before that. For 12 years, he'd been drinking vodka daily, starting at 18. And guess who bought him his first bottle? Mom. Boys should practice liquor handling, she'd said. When doctors revealed Ethan's kidneys were failing at 28, Mom accused them of exaggerating. By 33, when he needed his first dialysis, she was yelling about medical negligence. At 35, both his kidneys were gone. Transplant or he'd die in a year. Mom, of course, wasn't a match. Her kidneys weren't suitable. Dad's weren't great either. Mine? Perfect. So when Mom came to me, she didn't ask if I'd consider donating. She demanded, "Give him one," she said. I offered one. "One isn't enough," she snapped back, her voice suddenly devoid of phony tears. His physique is feeble. He needs both to succeed. Otherwise, he'll be on permanent dialysis. I'm 30. For 4 to 5 years, she wanted me to be kept alive by machines. You're stronger than Ethan, she insisted. You're capable. Capable. That was rich. Mom had raised Ethan as her golden boy. He got a car at 18. I got nothing. Paid for my own. He quit college. Got arrested 3 times. Mom bailed him out. I had student loans. Paid my own way. When I was 20, pregnant, she evicted me. Your callousness warranted it, she'd said when that pregnancy tragically failed. Yet, I still became a nice, putting myself through school with 3 jobs. I became independent from a family that totally disregarded me until they needed something. For 12 years, Mom never called. Ethan never called. I learned about family events on Facebook. Ethan's wedding, Mom's 55th birthday, Dad's retirement party. I wasn't invited to any of them. Now, they needed my organs. And suddenly, I was family again. My refusal brought a wave of harassment I couldn't have imagined. Mom called my workplace, claiming I was having a mental collapse. I preemptively told my landlord I was unstable. I even joked to my partner, Daniel, that I was going to murder my brother. Mom showed up at my hospital during my shift. "Everyone, look at the nurse who won't save her brother," she shrieked, making a scene. "She won't split kidneys." Security escorted her out, but she was back the next day. For 2 weeks, she texted, phoned, visited. "You murder Ethan. You're selfish. What kind of sister loses her brother?" The irony was, Ethan wasn't actually going to die. Not really. He was on dialysis 3 times a week. Tolerable, not nice, but it could last decades. I knew this from my work. I had 70-year-old patients who'd been on machines for 25 years, living full lives. Ethan, though, craved peace. Mom, on the other hand, craved restoring her ideal baby without machines. She was bound and determined to bind me to gear instead. I decided to call Ethan myself, the first time in 4 years. "Do you know Mom needs both kidneys?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "Dialysis would last forever." He actually believed it. "You understand. You're young. Your adaptability would increase. Free of kids. I may, not you. Tried and failed." He said my miscarriage disqualified me from having my own organs. I hung up. I was done. Instead, I informed Ethan's transplant team about Mom's texts, about her demanding both kidneys. The lead surgeon's face darkened. She wants both contributions. That's illegal. Would never agree. Mom had told Ethan the team would do it if I consented. A complete faucet. The surgeon, Emma, immediately called Mom and Ethan. I put the phone on speaker for Emma to talk. Mom immediately started shouting, accusing Emma of intruding in family business. Emma, incredibly calm and professional, explained that federal law barred living kidney donors from giving both kidneys, as it would put the donor on dialysis forever. Mom screamed, convinced Emma was lying to shield the hospital from a lawsuit, saying Emma was purchased by insurance firms. Emma, looking bewildered rather than outraged, relayed the facts carefully. Live donors can donate one kidney. The law is federal. Transplant doctors denied my double donation request. Mom cried. Phony tears, always. But under the act, I heard terror. An obstinate doctor ruined her plan. Emma gently clarified that Ethan didn't even need both kidneys. A single healthy living donor kidney would suffice. Mom had been completely misled about the medical needs. Mom wept harder and hung up before Emma even finished. Emma apologized profusely across her desk for my mother's behavior. She stated the transplant team wanted to document everything in case my relatives pressured me again. My file was flagged. No one could discuss donation with me without the team present. As I napped, she filled out forms and took notes. For 2 weeks, Mom had made me feel awful for declining. She'd convinced Ethan I was intentionally killing him, that I was selfish and unpleasant. She told Dad and half the family the same. But here, a 25-year-old doctor stated Mom's request was unlawful. I wasn't insane. I wasn't rude. I was refusing a surgery no U.S. hospital would ever accept. Driving home that day, my hands were steady for the first time in weeks. I felt lighter, validated by expert approval. Out of my mind, indeed. Daniel had Chinese food waiting on the coffee table. He stood up when I entered, and I told him about Emma and the call. I started weeping then, not with sobs, but pure stress relief. Daniel gripped me too tightly to breathe, just held me as I cried into his shoulder, splattering tears on his shirt without a word. After I calmed down, we ate Chinese, his hand holding mine. My phone exploded at 11 o'clock that night. Mom's texts hit harder after messages like that. She accused me of lying, inciting physicians to detest her, poisoning them against Ethan with lies. She said I wished my sibling dead to impress my parents. She threatened disclosure. Sometimes 3 or 4 messages alternated fury and guilt. Ethan sobbed for me, she added. My daughter let Dad down. You'll regret this when Ethan dies and you're responsible. Daniel screenshot every text. He put each screenshot, dated and timed, into a harassment documentation folder on my laptop. I watched him work, my hands shaking. Mom's opinions suddenly looked very different after seeing them laid out in a grid. Daniel highlighted that her actions justified my refusal. A kind mother wouldn't let one child jeopardize her health for another, he said. Loving moms wouldn't say this. The next morning, Sophie, my boss, summoned me into her office before my shift. She closed the door. Hospital security had reported my mother tried to enter the dialysis unit around 9 o'clock last night. Mom had requested the security guard teach staff medical ethics and family loyalty. The guard, familiar with her now, blocked her from the lobby. Mom left after 20 minutes of fighting. I felt sick as Sophie handed me the computer security report. Sophie said the facility values personnel safety. Mom's arrival was detected. How are you? Do you require schedule changes? She asked. I nearly sobbed again. Someone was being gracious about this disaster. Sophie advised me to ask for help, reminding me the employee support program provided free care. After thanking her, I started my dialysis shift. Waking with my usual patients felt like nothing else. Mr. Klein, his machine ringing, showed me pictures of his little granddaughter on his phone. Mother Brennan, despite criticizing her daughter-in-law's cooking, hosted Thanksgiving. James discussed his fishing vacation next month. Their dialysis lasted 25 to 30 years. They planned, had families, and yes, moaned about life. Ethan wasn't being executed as Mom said. Dialysis 3 times a week was a burden, but it wasn't a death sentence. Lunch was interrupted by an unknown caller. Something prompted me to answer. "Is this me?" a woman asked. When I confirmed, she introduced herself as Mom's sister, Veronica. I hadn't spoken to Veronica since my expulsion from the family 8 years earlier. She asked my advice after Mom told her about Ethan's kidney condition. She seemed scared, not accusing, prompting a dialogue. In my car in the hospital parking lot, I told Veronica everything. Mom wanted both kidneys. The domestic and workplace harassment. The surgeon denying Mom's assertions that transplant workers authorized duplicate contributions. Veronica listened quietly. I could hear her breathing long after I finished. Mom lying about physicians' advice wasn't surprising, Veronica said. She told me Mom, not Ethan's father, encouraged Ethan's drinking. She purchased his first bottle. At family occasions, Mom laughed off Ethan's drinking. No one could tell Mom about Ethan, even though Veronica knew it would end poorly. My chest tightened as Veronica whispered, "My mom made communication tough, so the family rejected you. Mom would get mad if somebody mentioned or invited you, ruining the celebration. People stopped asking because getting along with Mom was simpler than her struggle." Veronica spoke softly, regretting it now for the sake of peace. Sitting apart, we spoke for over an hour. Veronica remembered Mom controlling guest lists and talks at all the family occasions I'd skipped. She added numerous family members were unhappy with Mom's nagging, demanding ways, and conduct, but they didn't say anything. Mom isolated or hurt opponents until they died. Veronica offered to speak to suspicious relatives. Before we hung up, she stated Mom was wrong, and I was right to defend myself. When relatives, not Daniel or co-workers, uttered similar things, I felt something. My first family approval in 12 years. Daniel and I were cooking dinner when the front desk phoned. Our doorman claimed my mother requested lobby access. I felt queasy. "Turn her away," I said. "She's not a guest." Mom's voice grew louder in the background, yelling about maternal rights and seeing her daughter. The competent doorman urged her to go, stating the building didn't want guests. Mom shouted over the phone. Her scream claimed the building staff was preventing her from helping me kill Ethan. Daniel snatched the phone from my shaky fingers and recommended we contact the police non-emergency number to document matters. I was scared when Daniel initially called the police on my mother. He informed the dispatcher of the situation, gave the address, and asked them to record the harassment. Mom was gone when cops arrived an hour later. The officer, a tired 40-year-old, took notes in our living room as I explained the pattern, workplace stalking, calls to my landlord and Daniel, and tonight's building event. He nodded, writing everything on his tiny notepad. "This kind of behavior often escalates," he said. And then, he offered a restraining order. He made it sound simple and protocol-based. That night, after the police left, Daniel and I investigated restraining orders on his laptop. After reviewing court documents and guidelines, we listed every occurrence over the past 4 weeks. Daniel's spreadsheet now included dates, times, places, Mom's words and actions, hospital events, texts, calls to my job and landlord, and tonight's lobby incident. Watching him work, my hand shaking, seeing the grid laid out, Mom's opinions suddenly looked less like family drama and more like clear, civically liable harassment. Daniel highlighted that her actions justified my refusal. "A kind mother wouldn't let one child jeopardize her health for another," he said. "Loving moms wouldn't say this." The officer's calmness helped me understand. "Not dramatic," he said. He handled it honestly. Civilly liable harassment. 4 days later, I left the parking garage after work. Mom was behind my vehicle. She looked awful. Dirty hair, crumpled clothing, heavy eye bags from days of sleeplessness. I debated turning back, seeking the security guard 20 feet away, my keys clutched in my hand. Mom spoke quickly when she saw me, launching into a feverish rant about Ethan being her child and how she couldn't lose him. She said she understood my past anger, but Ethan shouldn't suffer for family concerns. There were true tears now, and a broken voice. I whispered, Ethan won't die. Dialysis 3 times a week may last decades. Patients on my unit do it frequently. Mom screamed I was terrible for comparing her son to others. She yelled that dialysis was horrible and that I was damning Ethan to a terrible life when I could save him with one action. Her speech echoed through the concrete garage walls. Ethan declined my kidney offer, she shrieked. She requested dialysis for me, not Ethan. Mom nodded agreement. A true sister would give her everything. Her brother deserved nothing. Ethan was harmed, she alleged. I didn't understand addiction and prioritized my health. Therefore, his drinking wasn't his fault. Suddenly, security guard Luke turned. Someone must have reported the yelling, because he was focused on us. He immediately identified Mom from the hospital notice. He named her and instructed her to leave the hospital immediately. Luke interrupted Mom's conversation with her daughter. He threatened to call the police if she stayed. His voice was stern, but not harsh, showing he wasn't haggling. Mom left the garage, staring at me like I'd betrayed her. Luke followed her to my car, watched me lock the doors after she left. He inquired whether I was okay and urged me to notify security if I saw her in the hospital again. I sat in my car, shaking, gripping the steering wheel. Mom turned toward the garage exit, her shoes clicking on the pavement. She backed up 10 feet and turned, furious. You'll regret this when Ethan dies, and it's all your fault, she cried, her words echoing through the walls. When he's gone, you'll have to live with knowing you could have saved him, but chose yourself instead. Luke left. He stood between us, obstructing her view of me. He remained silent until Mom left. Her car started on the bottom level, the engine noises fading as she drove away. Luke walked me to my car and waited. Try rearranging your schedule, he said. Come and go at different times. Use different entrances. That kind of thing. I thanked him and closed my doors, then realized this wasn't just embarrassing drama. Security worried about my safety at the hospital because security experts felt my mother was a threat. I drove home on autopilot, my hands on the wheel. What occurred? Daniel asked when I arrived at my flat, where he was cooking supper. I told him about Mom in the parking garage and Luke's schedule adjustment idea. I found a lawyer, Daniel said, pulling out his phone. I called Mark Sullivan this afternoon after you texted about your mom returning. I was glad to be no longer alone. Daniel had been calling lawyers and researching as I worked. Seeing Mark's name on the restraining order and family court website, I called right away as Daniel made dinner. Mark answered on the third ring with a kind, professional voice, and I explained Mom seeking both kidneys, job harassment, and tonight's parking garage incident. After patiently listening, he invited me to meet tomorrow afternoon and asked me to bring my documents, Mom's texts, hospital incident reports, and the police record from her visit to my building. Bring anything that shows a pattern of behavior. I drove to Mark's downtown office early the next day after work. His waiting area was modest but neat, with comfortable office furniture and periodicals on the coffee table. After a secretary checked me in, Mark emerged 10 minutes later, shook my hand, and led me back to his office. He was perhaps 50, in a suit without a tie. Sitting across from his workstation, I pulled out the folder Daniel and I had made, screenshots of Mom's messages grouped by date, hospital security records from each visit, my apartment building's police report, and the transplant surgeon's statement about the illegal double kidney request. Mark laid everything out on his desk and wrote notes on a yellow legal pad as I described Mom's original demand to last night in the parking garage, asking about witnesses, dates, and Mom's physical violence. After talking, Mark sat back and glanced at his desk documents, saying, "You have an excellent case for a restraining order. The pattern is clear. Numerous witnesses and documented workplace disruption. Mark explained the process. I felt better when a lawyer indicated my case was strong. Legal authorities would take it seriously. 4 weeks after we petitioned, the court scheduled a restraining order hearing. I'd testify and provide proof concerning Mom's activities. He'd help me prepare court testimony. Given what you've shown me, I'm confident the judge will grant the order, he said. You have hospital security involved, police reports, workplace complaints, and a clear pattern of escalating behavior. Mark's assurance calmed me. I wasn't mean or theatrical. I was protecting myself from a boundary breaker. We scheduled a hearing preparation meeting for next week. That night, while making leftovers, I answered an unknown phone. Hello, I said. It's me. Dad's tired, scratchy voice said. After Mom booted me out 12 years ago, Dad hadn't contacted me once. Mom told me what transpired in the hospital. I know she's been out of line, but please reconsider for Ethan. I closed the microwave and placed my hand on the counter. Dad, I said, where were you when Mom expelled me at 20? When I miscarried alone? When I worked 3 jobs to graduate nursing school? The connection was quiet, but I could hear Dad breathing and visualize him at my childhood home. I know I should have spoken up for you back then, he finally said. But why not forget the past when Ethan's life is at stake? Dad, Ethan is safe, I told him. He gets dialysis 3 times a week. Many patients at my hospital do it. Dad sounded bewildered. Your mother stated the transplant experts advised her both kidneys would offer Ethan the best chance. 1 kidney may not be enough. Dad, I told him, after the transplant surgeon phoned to say double kidney donation is unlawful and impossible, I told Mom she lied. Despite my efforts, the hospital refused. Dad grew quieter. She said the doctor said that. He hesitated. Mom lied to you, Dad. She showed me paperwork and everything. She misled Ethan. Dad didn't say anything for nearly a minute, but I heard him stirring, maybe rising or pacing. I don't understand all the medical stuff, so I just trusted your mother to handle the technicalities. I knew Mom was manipulating everyone. Ethan thought the transplant team had authorized removing both my kidneys if I consented. Dad felt the doctors advised it for Ethan's best chance. The whole family undoubtedly accepted Mom's version, where I was the greedy villain refusing to rescue my dying brother. Everyone believed her because nobody imagined she'd lie about something so important. Ethan isn't dying, I said. Dialysis is unpleasant but effective. You could live normally on it. Just 1 kidney transplant is needed. Only living donors offer that. I explained how the transplant procedure works and how 1 healthy kidney from a living donor is typically better than 2 from a deceased donor because it's fresher. I told him about my patients who'd been on dialysis since the 1990s and had careers, families, and full lives. Dad listened without interrupting, collecting data that contradicted Mom's claims. His voice sounded older than I recalled, worn down by years of letting Mom make all the choices. I need to figure out what's true, he said. Dad listened to the facts and said he needed to think about it, not scolded or embarrassed me. 1 phone conversation didn't erase 12 years of quiet, but maybe Dad was finally seeing through Mom's deception. Or maybe he'd decided it was simpler to believe her story and I'd never hear from him again. The next week, after Catalina suggested family stress therapist Michaela Fields, I took the elevator to the hospital's staff support program on the 3rd floor. Catalina told me Michaela knew tough family circumstances and wouldn't push reconciliation. In the quiet waiting area with comfortable seats and serene colors, I completed intake papers regarding my family history and present pressures. Michaela, younger than I expected, maybe 40, came out to receive me in ordinary clothes. Her handshake was warm, and she smiled like she was delighted to meet me. Her office had a couch, 2 chairs, windows facing the parking lot, and a psychology and fiction bookshelf. Catalina told me a little about your circumstances, Michaela said, holding a notepad. Why are you here? I got carried away talking. Mom's kidney request, Ethan's entitlement, the 12-year estrangement, the harassment campaign, and last week's parking garage situation all unfolded. It sounds like your mother has never seen you as a separate person with your own needs and rights, Michaela said, not fixing or advising me. It felt like you've always existed in her mind as either an extension of her or a resource for your brother. I thought about that sentence all week, waking and sleeping. Michaela urged me to recollect other examples of this trend. I saw it wherever I looked. My mom had me take piano lessons for 3 more years, even though I hated them at 12. She liked telling people my daughter played. I wanted to attend community college near home, but she pushed me toward expensive universities so she could brag about my acceptance and then refused to help pay for my tuition. After I became pregnant at 20, she kicked me out since having a teenage daughter didn't fit her image. Michaela revealed Mom's kidney requirement matched. She wanted Ethan well again and wanted to utilize my body without my consent. I didn't realize removing both kidneys would kill me because my needs hadn't registered. Anything else was selfish self-rebellion for her convenience. Understanding the pattern didn't ease the suffering, but it made rejection less weird. Mom, I wasn't rude. At my second therapy appointment the next week, Michaela inquired about the miscarriage, something I hadn't discussed in years. Daniel knew, but I didn't explain. I got pregnant at 20 while living at home, working part-time at a grocery store, and planning college. Mom was furious, screaming that I was squandering my life, hurting her name, and that everyone would think she raised me poorly. 3 days later, Mom said to pack and go. She didn't care where or how I managed. Additional shifts let me pay a friend's basement rent. At 12 weeks, I cramped at work. My emergency room doctor told me I needed surgery to remove the fetal tissue after bleeding heavily. Without someone to call, I did everything alone. I told my mom 4 days later, and she thought it was excellent since I wasn't responsible enough to be a mother. After the defeat, she said my body judged my character for not being ready. I didn't hear from her for 12 years. After informing Michaela, I realized my embarrassment was never mine. I blamed myself for becoming pregnant, worrying out, and miscarrying. I was 20, alone, and scared, abandoned by everyone who should have helped me. My loss and Mom's abuse weren't my fault. They failed me, so I bore their shame for a decade. This was my first night of sleep in weeks following therapy. Daniel immediately saw I was calmer and didn't react to phone alarms. At his home, over a meal, he discussed it. He said he wanted a real future with me. He wanted to ask me to move in before the renal crisis, but he didn't want me to think he was just helping me. He wanted me to know he didn't fear my family's issues. He'd witnessed the worst. He picked me despite Mom's nagging and Ethan's animosity. We spent hours discussing our ambitions that night. He desired marriage, kids, and a life without my upbringing's turmoil. I had similar goals but was scared to aspire to anything over 20. Daniel clasped my hand across the table and said I deserved good things and loyal customers. I cried with relief, not anguish, for the first time in months, and felt better. The late October restraining order hearing was on a cold Tuesday morning. My hands trembled as I held our binder of paperwork when Mark met me outside the courthouse at 8:30. He told me the court would hear all sides and to stay calm and factual, no matter what Mom or her lawyer said. After security, the right courtroom was on the 3rd floor. Mom and her lawyer, an older man in a suit, spoke softly on a hallway bench, his head near to her. She looked compassionate in a nice dress, little makeup, and well-styled hair. Mom's face contorted in misery when she saw me, like I had hurt her. I gazed at Mark, finding serenity there. He gripped my shoulder and told me we had facts. But Mom looked so regular and maternal that I worried the court would see her acting instead of the truth. I thought my statistics would reveal a vicious daughter fabricating family strife instead of a harassment victim defending herself. With wooden seats and a judge's platform, the courtroom was smaller than expected. Mom, Mark, and her lawyer sat at different tables. The judge, a woman in her mid-50s with grey hair and a no-nonsense approach, quickly reviewed the paperwork and invited me to testify. I stood shakily and vowed to be honest. Mark questioned me thoughtfully. I described Mom hounding me for refusing both kidneys despite medical impossibility. I described Mom appearing at the hospital during my shifts, her lobby drama, security ordering her out twice, and her sitting outside my car in the parking garage, refusing to go when asked, with the security man interfering. Mark showed screenshots of text messages, call record showing frequency, hospital security statements proving trespassing, and Mom's apartment building police complaint. A pattern made the judge uneasy. The court stiffened when Mark presented the transplant surgeon's evidence that double kidney donation was illegal and that Mom had lied about the medical team's willingness. My mother's lawyer stepped up to cross-examine me gently. He stated I was exaggerating family turmoil into harassment, that my mother was desperate to save her child, and that I was punishing her for past issues. I'd been estranged from my family for 12 years since my mother kicked me out at 20 and never tried to reconnect, I told him. I attended family events without invitation. We mostly clashed about her treatment of me and my brother. Mark stood up for redirect and asked me one simple question while the lawyer tried to make me look like the troubled daughter who created family turmoil. Did I offer my brother one kidney? The legal and medically appropriate option. Mark asked. Yes, I said. He then asked what my mother's reaction was. I said I needed both kidneys and go on dialysis myself. The judge looked at me. He meant it, I thought. Then she asked Mom if she knew it was illegal and would put her daughter on dialysis forever. The judge interrupted Mom's lawyer and repeated the question, her voice sharp. Mom shifted in her seat, her composure cracking. She said the doctors were wrong, that she'd only been exploring all options to save her son, and that any mother would do the same. She never meant to hurt me. She just wanted Ethan to have. The judge asked whether Mom knew. Bugging me at work might cost me my job. Mom said she was just trying to make me realize how serious the matter was. The judge then asked if entering my residence after being told to stay away was acceptable. Mom flushed and cried, but they were panicked tears as she realized her manipulation wasn't working on someone with authority. The judge granted a 1-year restraining order, barring Mom from contacting me directly or through third parties, visiting my workplace or home, or posting about me on social media. She warned of swift arrest and jail time. Mom's face crumpled, and she wept harder, holding her lawyer's arm like she needed physical support. Her lawyer advocated a lighter sentence or fewer restrictions, but the judge was unmoved. She stated the recorded harassment was serious and persistent, that I had a right to feel secure at work and home, and that Mom's actions had violated legal bounds regardless of her reasons. The gavel cracked, and Mom couldn't contact me without criminal repercussions. Mark said it was perfect, and Daniel hugged me outside, telling me I did great and it was completed. It was important, but holding the restraining order paperwork on the courtroom steps made me feel heavy, sorrowful, and like something permanent had broken. Daniel took me to a fancy downtown restaurant with good wine and low lighting to celebrate, telling me how brave I was and how proud he was of protecting myself. The restraining order confirmed that my mother would never change, apologize, or see me as a person. I was exhausted after the hearing. I picked up my food and drank my wine and tried to feel good about having legal protection, but I couldn't. Daniel noticed and stopped pushing. He reached across the table and held my hand, telling me it was okay to not be okay and that I didn't have to pretend everything was fine just because I won. He knew that guarding yourself from family feels like loss. We finished dinner silently and walked back to his apartment where I fell asleep on his couch before 9 without even going to bed. 4 days after the judicial hearing, Veronica called as I was getting ready for work. After asking for the medical papers, she told me Dad had confronted Mom about the Fossards with a strained but resolute voice. The transplant team never indicated both kidneys would offer Ethan a greater chance, and the physicians never said one wouldn't be enough. After learning the truth, Dad was furious, and Veronica said they had their biggest fight ever. He packed a suitcase and came to Veronica's house that night to stay in her guest room while he resolved things. Veronica said she'd never seen him so angry or dejected. He was seeing 30 years of marriage clearly for the first time and despised it. She told me other family members had been calling her wondering what happened because Mom's narrative kept changing and nothing made sense. My cousin wanted to know why I was thrown out at 20. I felt strange buttoning my scrubs as Veronica said Mom's long-held story was crumbling and family members were reaching out to uncover the truth. That afternoon, between appointments, my cousin Olivia, who had spent summers with me before the family split, sent me a long, awkward Facebook post apologizing for believing Mom's statements about me being unstable and greedy. She apologized for not reaching out sooner and suggested we meet for coffee. "No pressure," she wrote. "I understand if you say no." I pondered the message for a while before responding, "Yes, I'd appreciate that." The next morning, Catalina summoned me into her office before rounds. I worried one of my patients had a problem, but she grinned and said the hospital management wanted to recognize my approach to Mom. Catalina wrote a letter explaining how I'd never let the harassment affect my work and how I'd continued providing excellent care even when Mom was at the hospital causing scenes. The board would put the commendation in my personnel file and give me a small bonus for maintaining patient care standards during a difficult personal time. Anxious, I arrived early for the coffee meeting with Olivia on my day off and watched people pass by the window. Being praised for surviving my mother's pestering felt strange and gratifying. Olivia looked older than the Facebook photos and tired, like life had worn her down. We hugged awkwardly, ordered drinks, and sat across from each other, unsure how to start. Olivia apologized again for the years of exclusion, saying she'd always questioned Mum's version but went along rather than make trouble. Olivia asked about me during family functions I wasn't invited to, but Mum became irate and Dad diverted the subject. She stopped asking because she felt bad about choosing comfort over doing the right thing. We spoke for 2 hours, which was beautiful yet heartbreaking. Olivia left after telling me Ethan was angry about the restraining order and blamed me for tearing the family apart, calling me ugly and harsh. Olivia said Dad was still going to dialysis 3 times a week and ranting about his unjust existence. Dad wrote on Facebook about selfish siblings who abandon needy family, and subtweeted about me, even though he couldn't name me. He was healthy, stable, and not in danger, but he was upset that his little sister wouldn't assist him. Olivia was honest and told me the transplant team was searching the National Donor Registry. Olivia confirmed what I already knew from transplantation, but it made it true. Ethan would get his kidney, but not from me. Michaela and I explored my complex ideas about protecting myself while watching family relationships break apart that week in therapy. I told her about Dad staying with Veronica, Olivia reaching out, and my strange mix of relief and guilt. Michaela taught me that I wasn't responsible for resolving problems I didn't cause, that Mom's lies and manipulation had been ruining the family before I established boundaries, and that some relationships are too broken to repair. "It's normal to feel bad about the restraining order," Michaela said, "but it doesn't mean I made the wrong choice. It just shows I'm human, and family relationships are hard, especially poisonous ones." Mark phoned 4 weeks after the courthouse hearing to say Dad had contacted him and asked if I'd meet with him alone. "No, Mom, no Ethan." Mark said I didn't have to agree to anything, but he recommended a public spot and reminded me I could leave if I felt frightened. I told Mark I'd meet Dad in a downtown coffee shop Saturday morning, neutral ground, where we had no history. I arrived 15 minutes early and sat at a corner table with a door view. Despite the warm coffee, my stomach and hands were chilly. Dad came on time, looking older than I recalled. His hair was grayer, his face more wrinkled, and his shoulders stooped like he was carrying a weight. He noticed me and sat across from me without hugging or touching me. We gazed at each other for a long time before he started. He apologized for the decade of silence, not reaching out after I got kicked out, not being there when I miscarried, and missing 12 years of my life because it was easier. He said he chose peace over justice and was ashamed of that. He also admitted he believed Mom's kidney lies because he didn't understand medical stuff and trusted her to handle the details. I couldn't tell him everything was okay or that I'd forgiven him, so I watched him look at his coffee cup, trying to find answers. The apology hurt more than if it had been phony since it meant he knew what he did and chose it nonetheless for 12 years. I inhaled and told him that words were simple and he had a decade to reach out before Ethan needed a kidney. He shook but nodded and kept his eyes down. I promised to rebuild something if he wanted change. Not guilty, but devoted to being different. We could meet once a month for coffee and see if trust would retain. He looked up, relieved, and accepted immediately. We decided the third Saturday of each month, same coffee shop, same hour, a realistic and safe framework. Daniel and I sat on my couch, his laptop screen lighting up his face as he clicked through vacant room photos. We'd been discussing moving in together for weeks, but tonight it looked real and feasible. He showed me a 2-bedroom with big windows, and I leaned against his shoulder, feeling his solid warmth and thinking about how different this was from my family. With Daniel, I got to choose and build something new instead of fixing something broken. I said, "Yes, let's go look at it this weekend." Daniel saved the listing and kissed my head, giving me hope. I couldn't explain why we needed a house together. At my next therapy session 4 days later, I told Michaela about Dad's apology and our monthly coffee plan. She listened with her usual focus, then noted how much had changed in 2 months since I first called the transplant team. I'd set boundaries with the restraining order, started rebuilding relationships with Dad and other family members, and now I was planning legal protection through a new apartment with Daniel. Michaela said, "You'd gone from terrified and protective to someone who defended herself while being open to healthy relationships." I wasn't conscious of the changes since I was too busy surviving each day. But sitting in her office with the afternoon light shining through the curtains, I realized she was right. 2 months earlier, I was terrified and alone. Now Daniel, Mark, Catalina, and even Dad were trying to help me. Not everything was fixed. It probably never would be, but I wasn't drowning anymore. The following week, Veronica invited me to a small family dinner at her house. Dad, my cousin, and a few other relatives wanted to reconnect with me. Veronica said Mom and Ethan wouldn't be there, and I could leave anytime if it felt wrong. I almost said no because family gatherings had been painful for so long, but her voice made me think this could be different. I agreed, and she sounded happy, telling me to come Saturday at 6 o'clock and bring nothing but myself. On Saturday, the home smelled like roasted chicken and garlic, and Veronica hugged me like she hadn't seen me in years. Dad was uncomfortable in the living room, and my cousin hugged me. After Veronica served supper and everyone started talking, the 6 of us, relatives I hardly recognized, but who remembered me, relaxed. My aunt shared a tale about a Christmas when I was 12 and Mom insisted I sit at the kids' table while Ethan sat with the adults, despite being only 4 years apart. I heard from people that Mom treated me unfairly. My cousin said she saw Mom give Ethan college money and told me to sort it out myself. She felt bad but didn't know what to say. Mom often stated that others saw the unfairness and brutality and looked away because it was easier. Each story impacted me hard, proving I wasn't dreaming it or being oversensitive, though I wanted to be angry at them for their silence. For all the years they could have said something, I felt sad for the young me who struggled to be good enough while everyone watched and said nothing. I thanked them for their honesty, but it was too late. My cousin casually said that Ethan had been matched with a deceased donor and was scheduled for transplant surgery in 4 weeks, at the end of supper. I felt glad, and something else, relief that he'd have the kidney he required without risking my health or future. Relief that this would resolve the months-long crisis, but also a hollow sensation that our relationship was destroyed and that even receiving what he wanted wouldn't change how he treated me. I told my cousin I hoped the transplant went well because I didn't want Ethan to die or suffer. Dad clasped my hand under the table, a modest gesture that meant a lot. The next week at work, Catalina called me into her office and told me the hospital was establishing new family harassment regulations for staff. My case exposed gaps in the hospital's protection processes, which they were fixing. The hospital now has clearer rules about family members, faster complaint response systems, and mandatory recording of threatening relatives. I sat there thinking about how Mom's misdeeds might assist another nurse from having their mother pursue them at work. Catalina stated my experience would help safeguard other healthcare workers in similar situations. 4 weeks later, Veronica called to say Ethan's transplant went well that morning. I was glad the surgery went well because I didn't want my brother to die. The replacement kidney was filtering his blood nicely, and the doctor expected he'd be off dialysis in a few months. Transplant patients need lifetime anti-rejection medication. After the medical catastrophe, we both realized some relationships were too fractured to heal. Veronica claimed Ethan was already whining about the hospital food and the uncomfortable bed, which sounded just like him. Dad called me that evening to say he'd visited Ethan at the hospital, but Mom had been there, too, so he'd kept the visit short. Even though Mom kept calling to come home, he said Veronica's house was giving him space to think clearly for the first time in years. Even though it was hard and lonely, he recognized he'd spent too much time managing Mom's emotions and supporting her worst behaviors and couldn't go back. I told him I was proud of him for holding his boundary, and he became silent and said that meant more than I probably knew. We spoke about our days. After years of nothing, Daniel and I leased a 2-bedroom apartment across town, far enough from my old home to seem like an escape. The walls were white, plain, and neutral, like every rental apartment I'd seen. I painted the bedroom a soft blue from a dozen color samples the first weekend, and Daniel chose gray for the living room to make it feel bigger. We put furniture to fit our lifestyle, not someone else's. I hung pictures of Daniel and me on the walls. Every decision appeared ours, not inherited or influenced by family or a toxic background. Our vacations and dinners, a record of our life together. No family photographs or photos of people who'd ignored me for years. This place was ours, when nobody could demand things or make me feel bad for defending myself. I woke up 4 months after the restraining order to find I'd slept all night without feeling concerned. Catalina said I delivered good patient care despite personal stress. Daniel and I got into comfortable routines, preparing supper most nights and talking about our days without family conflict. After discovering Mom's demands, I started reconnecting with cousins and extended family over coffee or lunch. It was awkward at first, but it got easier as we built new relationships based on honesty rather than Mom's carefully controlled narrative. My cousin invited me to her daughter's birthday party, my first family event in over a decade. Instead of waiting for the next crisis or harassing occurrence, I brought a gift and spent 2 hours with relatives who apologized for believing Mom's lies and rejecting me. Dad and I met for coffee on the first Saturday of every month at the same downtown cafe where we could talk uninterrupted. He always arrived on time, which may seem easy, but it was crucial given his history of prioritizing Mom's comfort above mine. During these coffee encounters, he said he should have protected me when I was younger, stood up to Mom when she booted me out, and reached out during the 12 years of quiet. We would have been better off if Dad had been a better parent from the start, but our connection was becoming genuine and honest instead of the dream relationship I sought as a kid. He cared about my life, remembered facts from earlier talks, and accepted my boundaries when I didn't want to talk about Mom or Ethan. The monthly coffee session seemed like beginning again rather than healing something that had always been broken. I sat in the flat Daniel and I created together, looking at the blue bedroom walls and our life photos and realizing something had changed inside me. I didn't need Mom's approval or Ethan's gratitude or acknowledgement that his expectations were unreasonable to know I'd made the right choice. Protecting my health and refusing an illegal demand. Daniel, Catalina, Michaela, Mark, and family members respected my boundaries and treated me like a person, not a resource. The restraining order protected me, and I carefully documented everything in case Mom tried anything else. I had created a life where my needs and voice were heard. I let some family relationships die because they were toxic and one-sided. Others improved over time based on honesty and mutual respect instead of blame and guilt. Dad was trying to change, so I let him show his dedication. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly free.